Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the 2017 defensive shooting that takes place in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Starting off with the four perpetrators of the incident, we have the ringleader slash getaway driver, 21-year-old Elizabeth Rodriguez, and her three accomplices. Her 19-year-old boyfriend, Max Cook, and two minors that also lived with the couple, 17-year-old Jacob Redfern and 16-year-old Jake Woodruff. The four of them would routinely drive around in case houses with the plans to come back and break into them in the future so they could steal stuff inside and then later sell it for money.
Because that's where the money at.
On the day in question, they chose a home in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma that they had previously cased. The trio of boys broke into the garage while Rodriguez waited in the getaway car outside. The boys managed to make off with some electronics and alcohol. Upon returning to their residence, they discovered that they did not, in fact, steal enough stuff in order to cover the rent. Elizabeth managed to convince the three boys, who were reluctant, to go back to the same house that they had just broken into, but this time they were going to break into the main house. Upon arriving, Elizabeth remained inside the automobile, and the three boys proceeded around the back of the house, dressed in all black, wearing face masks, armed with brass knuckles and a knife, and proceeded to break down the rear door. In comes our defensive shooter, 23-year-old Zachary Peters. Peters had been home the entire time, and unbeknownst to him that his garage had already been broken into, is awakened from a lovely afternoon nap to the sound of his kitchen door being broken down. Hearing the commotion, Peters jumps up and arms himself with an AR-15 style rifle and proceeds to the sound of the intrusion, where he would then confront the three would-be burglars, now turned home invaders. After a brief exchange between Peters and the trio, Peters opened fires on all three of them, striking what he believes to be two out of the three. One of them dropped where he stood, while the other one stumbled down a hallway, and 16-year-old Jake Woodruff would run out the broken-in kitchen door. Peters, still fearing for his life, then retreats to his bedroom, locking himself inside, where he then calls 911.
911, what's the address of your emergency?
I've just been broken into. 3 men, 2 have shot in my house, 9176 Clearview Drive.
Was anyone shot?
Yes, 2 of them.
Are they bleeding?
Yes, I believe one's down, one's still talking. You need to get here now.
Jacob Woodruff would then make it back to their getaway car, doing some sort of failed Dukes of Hazzard slide across the hood, and collapsing onto the ground because he too was hit by gunfire. Rodriguez would attempt to get Woodruff to get up and get inside the car, but ultimately she would leave him to bleed out on the ground as she drives away. Back inside the home, Peters is frantic because he can still hear one of the assailants still talking. He is desperately waiting for deputies to arrive, but he does remain calm enough to give them directions to his house.
They broke in the back door. I can hear one of them talking.
And you live in Broken Arrow, correct, sir?
Correct. Just outside of city limits is Wagner County.
And you said there's 2 miles east of the Zico plant?
Correct.
Okay.
Rodriguez would drive around for a period of time before finally being convinced by a friend of hers that she needed to turn herself into local police.
She wasn't crying because she didn't believe that they were dead yet, but then whenever I called her and told her as she was on her way to go turn herself in, I said, they are confirmed deceased on the news. And then she started bawling and crying. And
Now, in Oklahoma, there is a very interesting law that if you are in the middle of committing a felony and somebody dies, you can actually be charged with murder for that death.
If there is a murder that occurs during the commission of a felony, you are just as responsible for that murder as you are for the underlying felony. The example that I always think about is if you have 4 people going into a bank to rob a bank, all of them may have guns, but one person pulls the trigger and shoots the security guard. Aren't they all equally as responsible?
Now, in this case, Rodriguez was initially charged with 3 counts of first-degree felony murder because all 3 of her accomplices died during the failed home invasion. She would then later somehow get the charges pled down to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Zachary Peters was not charged with any crime, nor was he arrested from any records I could find, which is good because a lot of times in self-defense shootings, the defender does end up in handcuffs, at least for a small period of time. The prosecutor believed that this was a very clear-cut case of self-defense, while the media immediately did media things and wanted to twist things around.
A lot of talk about this being a test of these so-called stand your ground laws.
Stand your ground laws really got a bad rap after George Zimmerman used that when he gunned down a teen boy, Trayvon Martin. So that's why everyone has it in their mind that stand your ground is a bad thing. It's not. What it is really is a souped up self-defense. They have an exchange of words and he unleashes the weapon. It is an AR-15. That's considered bad in a lot of ways. It's just like an M16 military rifle. It is semi-automatic, and that has really turned a lot of heads. But it doesn't matter if you're using an AR or a BB gun. If somebody comes in your house, you have a right to defend yourself. Everyone was wondering, you know, he uses a semi-automatic weapon on these three teens. Is he going to be charged? No.
They wanted to see if this would test Oklahoma's new Stand Your Ground law, which really didn't apply in this case, but they also wanted to portray Oklahoma's Castle Doctrine as a bad law as well, because they apparently have a nickname for it in Oklahoma called the Make My Day Law.
This case could put Oklahoma's so-called Make My Day law to the test.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Fortunately for Zachary, the prosecutor never had any sort of doubts about his innocence and never charged him with a crime. Now, there was a little bit of controversy outside of what the laws were called and the new Stand Your Ground law, and that was from the grandfather of one of the home invaders who believed that Zachary used excessive force and that his grandson didn't need to die.
They knew they could be punished for it, but they did not deserve to die.
Jacob Redfern's grandfather says the boys paid a terrible price.
There's got to be a limit to that law. He shot all three of them. There was no need for that. The past is history, and you can't change history, but you can damn sure learn from it. And maybe some kids will learn from this.
So, there you have it. That was the 2017 incident in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We can learn several things from this, where the media will portray things in all sorts of weird and confusing manners, questioning in the Stand Your Ground law, trying to make it sound worse by saying it was not a Castle Doctrine, but the Make My Day law, and even demonizing the weapon of choice, which was an AR-15. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you liked today's video. If you have a defensive shooting you'd like me to break down and cover, leave those in the comments below. If you did enjoy the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. It really does help me with the algorithm. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe for more 2A content. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.